Tyler Perry just did something no one expected. At this year's BET Awards, in front of millions of viewers and some of the biggest names in Hollywood, he stood on stage, took a slow breath, and dropped a line that instantly became the most talked about moment of the night. Without saying her name directly, Tyler aimed a verbal shot straight at Meghan Markle. His words? A sharp reminder about unpaid debts and loyalty. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't playful, it was a public call-out wrapped in a calm, controlled tone that somehow made it sting even more. The camera quickly cut to Meghan sitting in the audience. Her reaction said it all. Lips tight, jaw clenched, eyes staring forward, her smile stretched in a way that looked more forced than ever. The audience around her shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to react, and within seconds, Twitter and Instagram blew up. Fans and critics alike couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. And just when people thought the moment couldn't get more awkward, Oprah Winfrey, Meghan's once biggest supporter, remained completely silent. No Instagram posts, no press release, not even one of Oprah's famous cryptic inspirational quotes. Insiders say this wasn't a scheduled issue or some kind of misunderstanding, it was deliberate. Hollywood doesn't always scream when it cuts you off. Sometimes, it's a silence that sends the loudest message. So how did things get this bad? How did Meghan go from being Hollywood's newest darling to being publicly embarrassed by Tyler Perry and ghosted by Oprah? Let's rewind and break down every step of Meghan's Hollywood unraveling. Just a few years ago, this story would have sounded impossible. Back in early 2020, Meghan and Prince Harry made their shocking announcement. They were officially stepping away from their royal duties. They weren't just leaving palace life behind, they were walking away from their titles, security, and financial support. For a brief moment, it felt like they had the world at their feet, but behind the scenes, things are chaotic and messy. They had no permanent home in the United States, no guaranteed income, and most concerning of all, no security detail to protect them and their young son Archie. Paparazzi were circling, the media was ruthless, and there were growing concerns about safety. That's when two of Hollywood's most powerful names, Oprah and Tyler Perry, stepped up in a way that surprised everyone. Tyler Perry didn't just offer words of support, he opened the doors to his multi-million-dollar Los Angeles mansion. It wasn't just a guest room, it was full access to one of the most secure celebrity homes in Hollywood. Perry even paid for their private security team out of his own pocket, something that reportedly cost him tens of thousands of dollars each month. For Harry and Meghan, this was more than kindness, it was survival. Meanwhile, Oprah provided something Meghan desperately needed at the time, media power. When Meghan wanted to tell her side of the story, Oprah gave her the most watched television interview of the decade. That 2021 special flipped the narrative for a while. Meghan was seen as brave, as a woman standing up against one of the oldest and most powerful institutions in the world. Tyler defended her publicly. Oprah gave her a global platform. At the time, it seemed like Meghan's bonds with these two Hollywood giants was unbreakable. They stood by her through backlash and bad press. Both risked their own reputations to back her up. But here's the thing about fairy tales, they don't always have happy endings. What happened next would slowly chip away at those powerful friendships, and it all started when Meghan made the risky choice to reignite her war with the royal family. This time on her own terms, and in her own words. When Meghan and Harry first landed in Los Angeles after leaving the UK, their future was full of uncertainty. They had dreams of building their own empire, free from royal restrictions, but making that happen wasn't going to be easy. Hollywood isn't known for giving out second chances, especially not to people whose only real claim to fame was marrying into royalty. But Meghan had something most people didn't. Two of the most powerful friends in the entertainment industry. Oprah gave Meghan the kind of exposure that PR teams dream about. That 2021 Oprah interview wasn't just a sit-down, it became a global event. People tuned in from all over the world. Headlines dominated the news cycle for weeks. Meghan was framed as a strong woman standing up to the centuries-old institution. For a short time, her image shifted from royal outsider to modern-day survivor. And let's not forget Tyler Perry. Long before the cameras rolled, Perry had already stepped in as a real-life guardian angel. He didn't just offer them shelter, he gave them safety, privacy, and a sense of normalcy at the time when their lives were spiraling out of control. Insiders say Tyler barely knew Meghan personally at that point, but he felt compelled to help because of his connection to Princess Diana's legacy. His late mother had admired Diana deeply, and that emotional tie reportedly played a big role in his decision to help. For a while, everything seemed to be working. Meghan and Harry were making new friends, landing lucrative media deals, and building their brand as independent voices. They had powerful people backing them, and gave them an instant level of Hollywood credibility that most outsiders could only dream of. But as time passed, Meghan's relationship with both Tyler and Oprah started to shift. Small cracks began to show, cracks that would soon become giant fractures. And it all started with Meghan's decision to take her grievances public again in 2025. Meghan Markle was back on the media circuit, but this time, the tone felt different. Instead of focusing on new projects or positive partnerships, Meghan's interviews and public statements centered around one thing: attacking the royal family all over again. Just 6 months into the year, Meghan had already thrown at least half a dozen jabs at her in-laws, both directly and indirectly. In multiple interviews and public appearances, she spoke about how the royal family had allegedly stifled her creativity, her motherhood, and even her mental well-being. She claimed she had to dim her light while living in the UK, saying she couldn't be the kind of mother, businesswoman, or even home chef she wanted to be. Her new lifestyle brand leaned heavily into that narrative, with messaging that painted her as someone finally breaking free from years of royal oppression. But something felt off. Fans, media outlets, and even some former supporters started noticing the repetition, the same talking points, the same blame game, the same portrayal of Meghan as a victim and the royal family as the villains. Critics began asking, how many more times can she tell this story before people tune out? To make matters worse, her timing couldn't have been worse. Public sympathy was running low, the royal family had been dealing with its own internal challenges, and the constant rehashing of old wounds felt exhausting to many. Rumors started to swirl that even Meghan's Hollywood allies were getting tired. Quiet conversations began happening behind closed doors. Some producers reportedly pulled out of projects. Others stopped taking her calls. Insiders whispered that people in the industry were growing frustrated with her narrative, constantly circling back to the same drama. And while Meghan pushed forward with her press tour, convinced she was reclaiming her voice, she didn't realize she was also pushing away the very people who once stood by her. Then came the BET Awards, and Tyler Perry's now infamous moment on stage, and that's where everything truly changed. The BET Awards are known for shocking moments, but no one expected what Tyler Perry did that night. As he stood on stage, he delivered a brief but pointed comment about loyalty and long overdue paychecks. Without saying any names, the message was crystal clear. The cameras quickly shifted to Meghan Markle in the audience. Her expression said it all: tense smile, stiff posture, and eyes fixed straight ahead. Almost instantly, social media platforms like Twitter and Instagram exploded with speculation. Fans and insiders didn't need confirmation. Everyone understood that Tyler was addressing Meghan and their complicated history. For years, there had been quiet rumors about Meghan owing Tyler, whether financially or emotionally, for the help he gave her and Harry during their royal exit. He had provided them with a mansion, security, and a safe space during their toughest days. Yet until now, he had kept his feelings private. This BET Awards moment was different. It wasn't an angry outburst, it was a cool, calculated public statement. Hollywood insiders said Tyler had reached his limit, and this was his way of letting the entire industry know. What made it sting even more was how carefully he delivered it: calm, professional, and impossible to ignore. And just like that, Meghan's long-standing support from one of Hollywood's biggest names was officially over, at least in the eyes of the public. Before we dive into the next part of this story, I just want to pause for a quick thank you to all of you watching. This channel recently hit a big milestone, over 4,000 watch hours and 300 subscribers. That's huge progress from where we were just a few weeks ago, at 3,500 hours and 230 subscribers. So seriously, thank you so much. But here's the crazy part. Over 99% of our viewers are still not subscribed. If you're enjoying this deep dive and want more celebrity drama breakdowns just like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets us keep bringing you the stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear. Let's grow this together. Thank you for watching, and now back to the video. If Tyler Perry's public comment wasn't enough of a blow, Oprah Winfrey's complete silence made things worse for Meghan. For someone who usually speaks out on social issues or offers subtle support with a single post or interview soundbite, Oprah's lack of any response was impossible to ignore. No tweets, no Instagram captions, no interviews, and nothing. Insiders revealed that Meghan's team reached out multiple times, hoping to get Oprah to say something, anything, to soften the fallout from the BET Awards. They asked for a simple comment, maybe a brief statement of support, or even a vague social media post. But according to reports, Oprah's camp declined every request. Some say Oprah didn't want to get dragged into Meghan's latest round of drama. Others believe she was quietly sending the message that she no longer wanted to be associated with Meghan's public controversies. Hollywood insiders began whispering that this wasn't just distance, it was an intentional freeze-out. PR experts noted that in Hollywood, silence from someone like Oprah can speak louder than any press release. The message was clear. Oprah was done publicly supporting Meghan, and when a media powerhouse like Oprah steps back, others usually follow. Tyler's comment and Oprah's silence triggered a ripple effect across Hollywood. Suddenly, producers, directors, and PR firms began distancing themselves from Meghan. People who had once rushed to align with her brand were now going out of their way to avoid being attached to her name. According to industry insiders, some of Meghan's recent business pitches started getting rejected. Networks that once competed for her attention were now quietly passing on new projects. Even entertainment journalists, who had previously fought for exclusive interviews, were moving on to other stories. Behind the scenes, Meghan's team was scrambling. They were reportedly tried pitching positive profile pieces to various media outlets, but most declined. The story had shifted, and not in Meghan's favor. Social media only made things worse. Hashtags like #HollywoodCutoff and #MeghanFrozenOut began trending. Talk shows debated her fall from grace, and gossip blogs dissected her every move. The once wide open doors of Hollywood were closing fast, and people who had once cheered Meghan on were now watching from a distance, waiting to see what she would do next. Before the full Hollywood freeze-out became obvious, Meghan and her team were working overtime behind the scenes to control the narrative. Insiders revealed that right after the BET Awards drama, her PR team went into crisis mode. They contacted several major media outlets, offering exclusive interviews, feel-good, human interest stories, and behind-the-scenes glimpses into Meghan's personal life. Their goal was clear: shift the focus away from the Tyler Perry moment and back onto Meghan as a misunderstood, independent woman finding her voice. Some reports even suggest that her team offered to leak new royal family details in exchange for favorable coverage. But Hollywood wasn't interested. Networks that had once fought for Meghan's exclusives were now declining. Magazine editors weren't biting. Even her usual media allies kept their distance. To make matters worse, sources claim Meghan reached out to old celebrity contacts, hoping anyone would publicly support her. Most stayed quiet. A few responded privately with sympathy, but refused to say anything publicly. It became clear that Meghan's usual playbook, control the story, dominate the narrative, and frame herself as a victim, wasn't working this time. Hollywood was no longer willing to help clean up the mess. What's happening now isn't an isolated incident. It's the latest chapter in what many see as a long pattern of public fallouts and damaged relationships tied to Meghan. The Tyler Perry and Oprah situations may be the most shocking, but they're far from the first. Over the past few years, Meghan's reputation has taken multiple hits. There were the palace staff bullying allegations, where former aides claimed she was demanding and harsh behind closed doors. That was followed by the messy end of her Spotify podcast deal, which critics slammed for being poorly produced and lacking substance. Then came the backlash from her Netflix docuseries, especially the now infamous moment where she appeared to mock Queen Elizabeth with an exaggerated curtsy. That single thing turned even some of the most loyal fans against her. The controversies piled up, whether it was accusations of bullying, reports of diva behavior on set, or failed business ventures that promised big things but delivered little. Even small details, like trademark issues with her podcast and awkward public appearances, adding to the growing narrative that Meghan struggled to maintain long-term professional relationships. To many, this latest Hollywood freeze-out feels like the natural result of years of burned bridges and missteps. As the days passed after the BET Awards, the signs of Meghan's Hollywood freeze-out became impossible to ignore. Invitations to high-profile events stopped coming. Her name quietly vanished from guest lists where she once held a permanent spot. Even photographers, who used to scramble for shots of her, began skipping her arrivals at public places. Industry insiders said Meghan's team continued pushing for bookings on major talk shows and appearances at red carpet events, but producers weren't interested. Some sources claim Hollywood executives now viewed her as too risky and too unpredictable for live interviews or unscripted moments. Streaming platforms that once considered her a marketable name reportedly started pulling back on future projects. Behind closed doors, executives worried about backlash, viewer fatigue, and a growing sense that any Meghan-focused content would bring more controversy than clicks. Even social media, once her strongest weapon, began turning against her. Supportive hashtags faded, replaced by sarcastic memes and harsh commentary. Oprah's silence and Tyler's public distancing had triggered a much bigger reaction. Hollywood now seemed to feel safe walking away from Meghan, and that shift was happening faster than anyone could have predicted. Now Meghan finds herself facing a harsh reality. She's isolated in an industry where connections and loyalty mean everything. The woman who once stood beside Oprah and Tyler Perry is now watching as former supporters slip away, one by one. This isn't just about media headlines or social media chatter. The quiet rejection is happening at every level, from producers and directors to magazine editors and former friends. And what makes the situation even more alarming is that it's not being driven by palace insiders or British tabloids. This fallout is happening right here in Hollywood, on her home turf. While Meghan has survived public criticism before, this moment feels different. With her most powerful ally stepping back, her usual playbook of image control and narrative shaping might not be enough this time. Observers across the industry are watching closely. Will she launch a massive PR comeback? Will she double down and expose new private details for sympathy? Or will she quietly retreat from the spotlight altogether? The next chapter in Meghan Markle's story feels inevitable, and based on how fast things are unraveling, that next twist could hit sooner than anyone expects.